People of the internet, it's Amanda, and if you're new here on my channel, I usually talk about Japanese movies, dramas, entertainment. Sometimes I tap into other Asian pop culture topics as well. In 4 days video, we're here to talk about my favorite topic, which is number I. So they released a new song titled God I, and as you've expected, as soon as the title dropped, as soon as the teasers, and obviously when the music video and the lyrics for the song came out, given the title and you know how it is with religious references or like deities or all these other things, it would obviously be controversial, and I've seen some people like comment on it already. Obviously, to each our own, we have our own cultures, beliefs, and stuff like that, and like how it is. But looking into the lyrics, I myself, like, even if I'm also kind of like a religious person, I also have my own relationship with God and, you know, like the higher power and stuff like that. I kind of like interpreted this song very differently. Obviously, other people will have their own interpretations as well, and respect that, it's valid. But for today's video, we're just going to discuss what I feel like was the overall messaging of the song and my own interpretation of it, some references that I found, and my overall thoughts about this new release, which was produced by Kishi. Now, it's just very, I feel like just overall, it's worth kind of like jumping into this video saying that it is a very interesting track. I don't think it was something that we expected based off of the teasers and the history of how they go with more hard-hitting melodies like with Goat, Bon, and Inazuma. It's not so much like Blow Your Cover as a ballad R&B type of song as well. So, and as usual, like with other Kishi produced songs, there's something so uniquely fresh about the sound of this song, which again we'll dive more into in today's video. But before that, so let's talk about the music video first. I really love the film-esque vibe for this one, especially the intro. And I don't think anyone kind of like expected that the melody would be very musical-esque at the beginning. This part right here, if you've been a fan of them even before they were number I, and it was during around that time, you know, when they were leaving their former group, this was one of the things that they talked about, is how they felt like they were already aging to that point where it feels like it's too late for them to go after their goals. And so hearing these lines, and I myself being in my late 20s as well, it kind of like hits hard in a sense that we all kind of like feel like we have that timeline, and that even in the beginning, you know, it reminds us that it's another year again and we don't really know what's coming, especially this is released in January and we never know what 2025 holds for us. Like, it is kind of like a very jarring idea, but the song kind of like goes into the flow of, but we have control over what we can do. And I think that's like the theme of the song overall. And the music video itself is also very creative, like with a transition to this otherworldly dimension, and at the same time just this very chill kind of like place that switches in between the two. There's really not a lot of settings as compared to Goat and Bon and Inazuma, but it gives a different kind of like worldview into the music or the message of the song itself, like two parallel worlds, two sides of just number I and probably like the viewers as well, and diving deep into it. I don't know, it's just really fun. There's a reference to the debut date, the formation date right there. Let's go back a little bit. This pre-chorus right here is also, again, something like that, where we're all being in this kind of like place, and it talks about them as well, like their popularity, probably their status as celebrities, but at the same time, just life in general. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed with stuff that are happening around us and all that, and then we just get lost in the maze of it all. And then it transitions into the chorus. And again, what's interesting about this is the messaging is kind of like really out there, and there is kind of like hard-hitting backtracks as well, and the melody, but overall it's a pretty chill and mellow song, and it showcases more of their vocals as compared to like their other lead tracks, which is very, very interesting and such a good choice. And I think Kishi did such a good job in terms of producing just the overall vibe of it, because again, it is another genre shift or a genre jump for Number I to try something. And again, what's interesting with them is, even if I'm a longtime fan of them, it's kind of like hard to expect anything really from what they're gonna release, because of how much they're pushing their own creative boundaries with their music right now. Then the chorus. I am all go, we are go, we are go, universe forever. I am all go, we are go, we are go, universe forever. This part is so catchy and the choreography is so good. Before we move on to this, let's just talk about that chorus for a second. So that line, I am my own God, was the controversial line that a lot of people were sharing their 2 cents on. For me personally, like, I get it. I get why other people might find it iffy, or, you know, again, to each their own with own beliefs and cultures and just overall perception in general. For me, I've always seen it. I've always seen it, and I guess it also falls into my own personal relationship with just faith and religion and all these other things, and just general philosophy in life, is like saying something like that. It's not them claiming that I am God per se, but I am my own God, in a sense that you still have the steering wheels to your own destiny, your own fate. It's all about choices. And I'll talk more about the references that I picked up on that kind of like circles me back to this point later into the video. But I think that's why I didn't see anything that wrong into like the way that they interpreted this song. I think overall it is kind of like them saying that no matter how, you know, with all the troubles that they mentioned earlier about aging, about feeling lost, about getting confused sometimes with all the noise and the brightness and everything like that, this is them kind of like still taking charge of who they are and taking responsibility for what they are pushing forward to. And I think when Kishi talked about the messaging of this song as well, he did mention that it is something that he hopes would encourage people, would kind of like be inspiring for people to follow through. And I guess that's the point of it, is because the song isn't necessarily saying that you're kind of like just all powerful and all knowledgeable, but it's more of, you know, that you should take charge of your life. And yeah, and it's, again, they talk about, you know, taking, hear this part right here. This line right here is probably like a callback to, you know, a past self of yours who's so worried about your future, who's, and also for other people who, because we never really know what's out there. And I think it's such a very literal song as well. I love this part right here. And that part right here, I've talked about this in, wait, let's backtrack a little bit. I've talked about this on Twitter/X last night, and I think a lot of people caught it because it's such an obvious reference, but it is a reference to Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. It's a painting that is one of kind of like the most recognizable and iconic painting ever. It's in the Sistine Chapel, and there's a lot of like interpretations about this. I will try to like link below the actual kind of like interpretation that I've read or who said it, but one of the interpretations for this one is that in Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, it is a depiction of God reaching out to Adam, him giving him the gift of life, and at the same time, like God and the imagery of the angels and the drapery kind of like resembles the brain, which is interpreted, and how it's so anatomically kind of like accurate that the interpretation is almost kind of like an accurate theory at this point, which says that God's gift to mankind is intellect and the ability to be creative and to pursue all these things about life in general. And that another interpretation is that with God's outstretched finger, while Adam is kind of like, if he just stretched his hand a little bit more, then he would connect with God like that, but he wasn't. And it kind of like is the, and again these are all interpretations, but it is him kind of like the need for him to pursue intellect and creativity and all these other gifts. It's not just something that is bestowed and is automatic, but man himself also has to like want it and reach for it. And it's very, I don't know, like I think it's very symbolic in a sense that they are artists, and at the same time just in life in general, we all have something in us, but we also have to reach for it and want it in order for it to happen. And even kind of like the website for this with the tree and how we need to like feed it with light and water as fans, kind of like is like the tree of life, which is symbolic of free will and choices. And again, with all the religious references, I kind of like get how it can be contentious to some people, but personally for me, as someone who grew up kind of like with these types of stories, I always find it fascinating while also believing it in a sense. I think overall it just speaks a lot to us as people and our relationship with our faith, no matter what kind of like religion you follow, because at the end of the day we are here on earth living our lives, and we, despite the fact that whether or not you believe that life is predetermined, that doesn't mean that it's just one thing overall. Like you're still here making choices and, you know, making things happen for yourself. And I think that's like what the song is about. Like that's my view of it. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed the whole Michelangelo reference because I also love art, and it's just kind of like very interesting. And of course, choreography, as always with these three, so solid, so good. Vocals are also really good. I mean, I already know this as their fan, but so sweet. This one. Vocals are insane. And again, the visuals are just crazy, like the way it is so artsy. So it's so pretty in that scene. And again, the reference to the painting, very, very similar to, and obviously, I guess, overall for this one, it's a matter of pleading yourself to push through. I guess, like, it's not necessarily like, I don't know, it's not necessarily kind of like just God, like, worshipping yourself, but rather begging yourself to push through with what you have in mind, no matter what these kind of like struggles here. Because this part right here, it's kind of like saying that, you know, okay, it's kind of like convincing yourself that you have to go for it. And again, here's the brain reference. And then this dance sequence right here is just so beautiful. This part right here is so catchy. And then there, so at the beginning, the sneakers was kind of like dirty and worn out. It's kind of like this, and even the lines at the beginning, right? It's kind of like walking this path where you're already worn out. Like there's so many years that you've already walked. But at the end of the video, the sneakers are clean again. So instead of viewing the new year and this new beginning as something that wears you out, that tires you, that is yet another year for you to like struggle and deal with it, it kind of like references probably a new beginning where you're back to square one. And instead of seeing that as a bad thing, it can be something that's seen as this kind of like an opportunity to kickstart things again, to just try things again. It doesn't matter like all these other things that had happened before. It's part of who you are, and it made you stronger, and you still have choices and kind of like autonomy over what happens to your life. And as long as you're here, then just keep pushing for it. And I think overall, like that's what I got from this song. And again, I would say such a creative one. I know that I probably missed other references in the song as well, but overall, it's a pretty straightforward song. I mean, again, I understand why people can misinterpret or don't like the choice of words that they used for this one, but overall, lyrically, it is kind of like very straightforward, to the point that it's kind of like hard to misinterpret it again, in a sense. But as with any type of art and music, it is still something that transforms into something subjective as soon as it reaches the audience. It becomes their own to scrutinize, to kind of like criticize, but to also absorb and find inspiration from. So that's just the nature of art and music. And I'm really happy that Number I brought this to us, because very, very similar to with Goat, with Inazuma, with Bon, God Eye is a song that also has its own unique charms and has messaging, not just what Number I is trying to say as a group, as part of their DNA, this is what they are, this is what their music is, but the lyrics is also kind of like a reminder to those who are listening to it, and something that, again, the listeners can truly take as their own and transform into what they want it to be. And overall, for me, it's such an encouraging song. Again, I listened to it once, I watched the video, I watched the lyrics, and then when I was actually into it, I think the third time, I ended up crying because of how the lyrics kind of like hit in a sense. And again, it's probably because I'm within the same age range as them as well, and your 20s definitely kind of like feel like that, where you're always constantly chasing after something. But you know, the song is a reminder that at the end of it, you know, you are making your own choices and turns and detours, and that no matter how predetermined things are in the grander scale of things, you can still allow yourself to feel like you're in control of the situation. And I didn't mean for this video to be very preachy, but I really enjoyed this song. It's such a, and again, compared to like their other songs as well, I feel like this is one of the most straightforward ones that they've released, and it's very, very different. I love the melody. It's definitely a lot more singable and vibey as compared to like their other songs, which are very, very like hard-hitting tracks. And again, Kishi done such a good job in terms of producing this. They are like, their styles just speak so much to whenever they produce a song, all three of them, and I couldn't be prouder. But yeah, but again, I understand why it might not sit well with other people, how people are interpreting it, all these other things. I think everyone has their own kind of, but I think a lot of people like the vibe of this more, at least the melody of this more compared to their other releases, because of how it is. But yeah, I guess that's what music and art is all about, should be thought-provoking, should be causing reactions and waves to people, and they've done just that with this song, and I hope that it succeeds as much as the other singles that they've had. I know that I'm gonna be streaming this over and over and just vibing to it. So tell me down in the comments below, what are your thoughts on this song? If you like it, please give this video a thumbs up. If you're new here on my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one. Bye!